Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Today is all about what we're buying and what we're selling from the NBA and the NHL. So we're basically through one game in almost everything. A couple series in the NHL get going tonight. But I thought this would be a good time to just pop in and be like, okay, what from the first games am I buying and what am I selling? We'll also get to a little bit on the Vegas Golden Knights situation and a little bit of boxing to close the show. So a lot coming up. Let's start with the hockey. So the Stanley Cup Playoffs are in full swing, and relatively fun first few nights. Just a quick one off the top here. I'm going to be on Game Over tonight. Game Over Edmonton, breaking down the Kings and Oilers, and knowing my luck, that's going to be a 4 overtime game because we haven't had one of those yet. But what am I buying? What am I selling from the start of the Stanley Cup Playoffs? Let's start with the buys. There's a few more of those. The Rangers are just better than the Washington Capitals. The Rangers, a lot of talk coming in the New York market about how the Rangers haven't really had like an easy first round series. They've always kind of had to grind their way through. This is an opportunity, I think, for the Rangers to not have to do that. I think we see a Rangers team come out here and really put a stamp on things. They do struggle 5-on-5 a little bit during the regular season anyway, but I thought that this was a nice showing from a Rangers team, just reminding everyone, like, look, we're better than Washington, and we should be treated as such, and we are going to treat them as such. And so I think that this game one is a sign of things to come, and I do think that the Rangers move on from this one relatively efficiently. The other, another buy that I have is in a fairly similar vein. The Carolina Hurricanes are just better than the New York Islanders. And look, the Hurricanes did not have their best game in game one. You still won. And from an Islanders standpoint, it's almost like you have to beat them 5 times now. Carolina just has too much firepower. The team is too deep. I just don't think the Islanders match up against this Carolina Hurricanes team. And quite frankly, against many playoff teams. I think of all the playoff teams in the NHL, the Islanders are probably 15th or 16th. So I don't think that there is a lot there from an Islanders standpoint to really grasp onto, like, hey, look at this. We played our best game of the series and we lost. So we'll see. I guess the one thing you can hang your hat on is that Carolina traditionally has slipped on a banana peel at times in the postseason, and you're just kind of hoping you can be that banana peel. The next one, and this is going to hurt a segment of the country, the Leafs just ain't it. And quite frankly, Boston has their number. Like, Toronto, that game was really, really difficult. They never really felt into it. And anytime there was a chance for them to get into it, Boston was like, oh, that's cute. Goal. Jake DeBrusk scores. Samsonov was not it. That was a relatively putrid performance between the pipes from the Leafs goaltender in game one. It was sloppy with the puck for Toronto. It was a team that looked like, and teams get like this in the playoffs. We've seen it before. I'm based here in Calgary. We've seen it with the Flames a number of times where it's okay. Playoffs are here. We need to be more physical. All right, I'm gonna hit a motherfucker then. And you just get geared up on, I'm going to hit this person. And then you get Ryan Reeves going over, making a hit while there's a defenseman pitching. All of a sudden it's out of position. It's a 2-on-1 and he's good. And the game kind of felt over from there. Also for Toronto, captain feel like making an appearance at any point this series. Austin Matthews was great in this game, but with no William Nylander, they needed, the other $11 million guy to step up, and Tavares was nowhere to be found when this game was still in the balance. So I guess from a Toronto standpoint, you can take solace in the fact that, like, you got a literal 0 from Nylander because he didn't play. You got basically a 0 from Tavares. You got, like, out of 10, 4 from Marner. Matthews was awesome. He just couldn't finish, but you had all of these opportunities, or you have all of your star players do nothing in this first game. So maybe in the second one you'll come out of it. But this feels like what the series is going to be like. Like, Boston, I don't think did anything special in this game. Swayman was fine, but they just went out, they played hard, they won battles, they took advantage of their opportunities, and they kind of dragged Toronto into the exact game that they want to play in. For a Leafs team that has been to the playoffs now, what is it, 8 years in a row? They seemed overwhelmed by this moment, and that can't keep happening with this group. And now I'm going to say, if this continues, this is the last time it's going to be able to happen with this group. But still, it can't keep happening. Simply can't keep happening this way for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And lastly, the Winnipeg Jets are for real. We've been telling you this for a bit. I had them in the playoffs when I don't think a lot of people did at the beginning of the year. Throughout the season, was saying like, hey, we need to be taking this team seriously. And then they drop a touchdown on the Colorado Avalanche in game 1. And everyone was reminded of how crazy that fan base was. And if there was anyone who was talking about relocation with the Jets when they were having some ticket sales struggles in the regular season, you need to slap yourself in the face at least 3 times and realize how great of a market that is for Winnipeg. And it would be nice if eventually they could get maybe a bigger building, but that it just felt like they were on top of the Avalanche the whole time with that crowd there. And it was so much fun to watch that and experience that, to see the Jets really have that sort of a wild game against Colorado. But this team is for real. They have 4 lines that make sense. They have 4 lines that can put the puck in the net. They have one of the better defensemen in the league in Josh Morrissey. I would have liked maybe another defenseman there, but I still overall like this defensive group. And Connor Hellebuck, when he's at his best, can be the best goalie in the NHL. I've said before, when you stack everyone up, if everyone, it's like NHL 24, if everyone is playing at their absolute peak, Hellebuck's the best. And I think we'll see that as this series goes along. Moving into the sell category, it's kind of a counter off of the Jets one. Yes, we are believing that the Jets are for real, but no, we are not believing that the Avalanche are cooked. You want to limit the giving up of 7. And for everyone who was doubting the goaltending situation for the Avalanche, this didn't quiet that. Obviously, this didn't quiet that. Like they got overwhelmed in this game by the Jets. But there is too much talent on this team for them to go quietly into that dark night. So, or into that white night, I suppose. I still think that this Colorado Avalanche team can make a real run. Now, like, I think the winner of this series can make a real run. Both of these teams are great. And I've said before, one of these teams being out in the first round is going to make that team have to take a good long look at some things. Not that the Avalanche need to blow it up or anything like that, but I do think they're going to take a look at how things have been constructed here over the last little bit. The other one that I want to sell is that the Preds are close to the Canucks, because I just simply don't think that's the case. And look, Nashville controlled a lot of this game, but you saw the talent edge for Vancouver. When they needed it, 2 goals in 11 seconds, bang, and it's over. And you see it, like, Pettersson didn't have a bad game, but he wasn't dynamite by any stretch of the imagination. JT Miller wasn't unbelievable by any stretch. It was Joshua, it was Lindholm, and it was Garland, that line that has been so key for them to be able to stretch out some of the other depth that they have on this team. That was the line that was getting the job done. And then when needed, Thatcher Demko came up with big saves. Like, I get that the Preds kept it close, and honestly, like, the scores might be close given Nashville Predator hockey and all of that. But I think that this ends up being it's going to be a hard fought series, but it might only be a 5-game series. And you can't have. You can have both that. So those are just a couple of my thoughts. What I'm buying and what I'm selling in the NHL. We're going to have NBA buy and sell coming up in a little bit, but a couple other news and notes things from around the NHL. First, the Vegas Golden Knights are bringing Michael Stone in for Game 1. And I know that there is a lot of, oh my goodness, he recovered just in time for the playoffs, and he probably was ready a couple of weeks ago. But the official stance of this podcast and Peter Klein's official stance on this particular situation is I simply don't care. If your team is good enough that you can make the playoffs without your captain, without one of the better all-around hockey players in the league, do it. If you want to have a taxi squad that is basically an all-star team that just sits the year out and you think you can make the playoffs without those players, do it. It's in the rules. It's fun. Cap circumvention. No, it's not. You're allowed to do it. Every single team in the league could do this exact thing tomorrow. right? Like you're just okay. Well, we don't really think we think we're probably okay. So I'm just gonna go put Brad Marchand in an ankle lock, and now he's gonna sit for a little bit. All these players are banged up. You want to do the same thing? Fucking do it, man. Vegas is incredibly talented. Vegas is a very good hockey team. Also, Stone was legitimately hurt. Let's not say that he wasn't. Stone was legitimately hurt. They put him on LTIR. That freed up some money, and they were able to do this. Toronto had players on LTIR, and they were able to go out and acquire Lyubushkin. So let's not say that Vegas is doing anything different. It's just they're doing it better than everyone else. And that's why everyone is, to quote someone in Edmonton, a little pissy. But no, I don't have one moment of problem with this. I have not spent 1 second of my life having an issue with how Vegas has handled this situation. You can do it too. Everyone out there can do it. Also, congratulations. Vegas has circumvented the cap. Your reward is playing the Dallas Stars in the first round. So, bravo to you. And lastly, Lindy Ruff has been hired as the new head coach for the Buffalo Sabres. This is bad. It's not a great decision. Lindy Ruff, I don't think he was the reason that things haven't worked out in his last couple of spots, but he didn't help. And this is not the coach that I think you need to have to bring a team out of a rebuild or anything like that. But, and I saw some people today saying like, okay, well, this is like a lot of people mentioning Buffalo when you're talking about how hard it is to come out of a rebuild. And the one thing that we don't factor is that Buffalo is stupid. And A, correct. B, this is one of the things that happens though. When you have been in a rebuild for a little bit and you then can't get out of a rebuild, you panic. You make big moves when you're not ready to make big moves. From a Flame standpoint, you sign Troy Brouwer and Dennis Weidman and think that you can come out of it. From a Buffalo standpoint, you're panicking. You need to bring in someone else to make it work. And so you go back to 1999 and you go back to the glory days, right? The Blue Jays did the same thing. All right, we can't get this team to... We can't get this thing figured out. Who do we bring in? Cito Gaston. Okay, cool. All right, now we've made this big trade with the Marlins. Who do we bring in? John Gibbons. You know, you get a little bit panicky because okay, it is time for us to win. Why aren't we winning? And then you start making panic decisions. Those are the types of things that happen when rebuilds go wrong. So we went through the buy sell in the hockey world. What about the basketball world? Let's talk about it. The NBA postseason is in full swing, and every series has had one game so far, so this is a pretty good time to look at what we're buying and what we're selling from the National Basketball Association. Let's begin with what we are buying, and much like hockey, the number one seeds just better. In the East, anyway, we'll get to the West one in a second, but in the East, Boston is just simply too much for the Miami Heat. This should be a 4 or 5 game series. It should not be close. Boston was kind of just playing with their food here in game 1, and I don't care without Jimmy Butler, whatever. Boston is a superior team. Now, maybe this is a good one for the psyche for Boston, that they are able to in some way exercise a demon from a season ago, even though it's not the same team for Miami by any stretch, but it's the same jersey and the same logo, and you can see Jimmy Butler there, and so maybe that's just a bit of a from a Boston standpoint that they can get that one out of the way early. But yeah, like that, I am 100% buying that Boston is worlds ahead of where the Miami Heat are right now. The New York Knicks, I am buying that they are better than the Philadelphia 76ers, and I am buying that they are going to win this series. McBride batumed Philadelphia in game 1, where Philly was struggling against Miami, and then the Stars aren't doing it, so let's get this random guy who pops in every once in a while. Same thing happened here with McBride. Brunson isn't having a very good game. Offensively, they're really struggling. Hart played poorly until the fourth quarter. McBride's a plus 37. And he comes out and just ruins Philadelphia and lights them up. And now you only need 3 good games from Brunson to win this series. It just feels so nice from a Knicks standpoint to be able to have that. And then key minutes down the stretch, Hart hits a couple of big shots. And this is, I think, the advantage of the Knicks playing their guys and really going for that second seed down the stretch here in the East, because they are battle tested a little bit. Now, no one's going to say game 80 in the regular season is the same as the Eastern Conference Finals, but I do think Hart benefited from playing in all of those games down the stretch and having all of those games mean something. For Philadelphia, they're going to need a little bit more from Embiid. They're going to need anything from Buddy Hield, who was brought in to kind of offset some stuff, and I think he played 11 minutes, and none of them were good. So there's some stuff on the Philadelphia end that can get figured out, but I am buying the Knickerbockers advancing in this one. I'm also buying Damian Lillard is for real. I think we kind of forgot out in Portland how good of a playoff performer this guy can be. He was lights out in this first game, and I think that was a bit of an awakening, like, the Pacers can't stop anyone, and this guy can't be stopped. And it's a real battle, and holy smokes, this guy just lit him up. So I think this is for real from Damian Lillard. When it comes down to this time of year, this guy can score. And I don't know if that's going to be enough necessarily. We'll get to that in the sell portion, but I am buying that Damian Lillard is for real and at least can be good enough to maybe get Milwaukee past the Pacers all on his own. I'm also buying that the Magic can't score a lick. That was a dreadful offensive performance by the Orlando Magic in game 1 of that series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the problem is that's what it's going to be. Banchero can only do so much. This team offensively is just not good. Their identity is on the defensive side of the basketball, and they need to flex that maybe a little bit more in game 2. Although I thought defensively they played fine. It wasn't smothering, but it was a fine performance. When you hold a team to under 100 in today's NBA, you're doing all right. But yeah, I am buying what we saw offensively from these guys. Like the Knicks, you can say, yeah, Brunson didn't play well. Hart didn't play well until the fourth. A couple other teams, you can kind of explain some things away. That's not with Orlando. What you saw is what you're going to get from just a putrid offensive team. I'm also buying that the Pelicans are going to be a problem for the Thunder. Throughout the stretch run here, we had been saying that the Pelicans are going to be could have been a tough matchup for the LA Clippers, just given their size. And it's funny that the Clippers' size ends up being an issue against Dallas in game 1. But I didn't think it would be as much of a presence against the Thunder. And JV, I thought, was really good in this game, and thought they could have used him a little bit more down the stretch. And this was always the note on the Thunder, is that they're going to have a tough time against some of these bigs. And New Orleans is a big team, and they're without their big guy in Zion. But I do think that the Pelicans are going to give the Thunder a real test here in the first round. And I think that'll be good. Like, this is a great learning experience for the Thunder. And it's weird to be talking about the 1 seed as having a learning experience, but this is a good learning experience for this team to be able to grow from this and really learn what playoff basketball is all about. The Denver Nuggets are just better than the Lakers. Going to put that in there as well. This is going to be a close series. But I am buying that the Nuggets are better than the Lakers. We knew that coming in, but we're going to continue down that path. We know what this series, we know who has the edge in this series, and it's not the Lakers. Jokic, especially there in the late third, early fourth. Like, this game was tied. I think it was 69-69. Nice. And they came out and just annihilated them. Complete dominance. Jokic took over. He was excellent, even getting things done on the defensive side of things. I'm also buying what we saw from AD in this game for the Lakers. He was phenomenal. I'm also buying that LeBron needs some help, because D'Lo was awful in this game. Reeves had a couple of moments, but there was nothing from D'Lo, and LeBron was just distributing. And they're going to need Killer Instinct Braun to show up against this Nuggets team if they're going to have any hope. And the last one is buying the breakout of Anthony Edwards. Not that he needed to break out. People already recognize this guy as a superstar, but you could see in this game, he took it to another level, and he feeds off of that Minnesota crowd so well. But this was just like the next coming of a superstar, with Anthony Edwards being that guy and being that damn good, lighting things up there against the Phoenix Suns. Things that I'm going to sell. We'll start with the Suns. I'm selling that they're going to be overwhelmed by the Timberwolves. That's kind of what it looked like in game one there in that middle stretch where the T-Wolves just kind of pulled away. There's too much scoring on the Phoenix side of things to let that happen continuously. They ended up getting cold at the same time Ant went hot. I do think that they're going to bounce back and make this a close series. It did make me change. I initially had Phoenix as the winner. I didn't do a playoff preview this year, which is great because a few of those picks would have looked bad now. But I am buying that that Phoenix is going to make a series out of this. But I'm now buying that Minnesota's probably going to win it. Back in the East, I am selling that the Pacers are done. Offensively, they just had a bad game. Siakam was the only one who was really doing anything for this group offensively. That is not this team. They did not play, I think, close to what their potential was here in game one. And so I think that there is going to be a real bounce back from this Pacers team, especially if Giannis stays out for any length of time. I still think the Pacers are going to be a problem for the Bucks. I also am selling the Donovan Mitchell renaissance for the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's great. It's one game. And he definitely heated up, but I do think that eventually we will see the Mitchell from last series where he kind of got big brothered by the Knicks a little bit. I do think that Mitchell shows up. Although I will say for Cleveland, this was a big first game for them because the two problems they had in the playoffs last year was Mitchell was just exposed in that one. And I think the perception of him around the media and fans anyway really took a hit. And the other one is Mitchell Robinson just took Jared Allen's lunch money. And that was a big problem. And Allen had some huge plays in this game that really got the ball rolling for Cleveland. So it's nice that they did that. I'm not buying it going into the next one. I'm selling that the Mavs are done. I think it was just an off day. Everyone had a bad game. Luka had a bad game. Harden probably played his best game of the series, and maybe even Westbrook played his best game of the series. So I don't think that there is a real cause for concern for the Mavs. I mean, look, you lose by like 100. You should be concerned a little bit. But I don't think that you really need to push the panic button if you are the Dallas Mavericks just yet. You can panic that they weren't ready for a playoff game, but they just weren't ready. And I think they will be here for game 2. Quickly, let's get into some fight talk because it was a weird weekend in the fight world. So we didn't talk about it a whole lot on this show, but Ryan Garcia went on an absolute self-sabotage rampage on social media all week and then came out on Saturday night and broke the jaw of Devin Haney and then broke Devin Haney and ended up winning unanimous decision. An unbelievable turnaround and an unbelievable performance. Not going to get too much into the actual fight. I just want to get into Garcia's narrative here because this is when he is on, and this was a nice reminder. When he is on, he is genuinely one of the better boxers in the world. I still think if you were to put him in a video game, that guy might win the tournament because he is so talented. It is just the other stuff that is going on. And he can say, I fooled you. What, did you guys really think I was going crazy? And the answer, quite simply, is yes. But also, I know for a fact there were people who didn't buy this pay-per-view because of how he acted. I thought the stuff with the weigh-in was entirely disrespectful and a real black eye for the sport. And so I don't look at this as a brilliant bit of marketing and a brilliant bit of mastery to fool one of the better fighters in the world in Devin Haney into believing that this was going to be a cakewalk, and out he came. I think that this was a talented fighter who overcame a bad week, but I think this is also a talented fighter who turned a lot of people off. I think not that boxing needs help with this, but I think it discredits any form of championships that the sport has been trying to really build up. And I hate the weigh-in thing where he finishes 3 pounds over and it's like, yeah, I'll pay $1.5 million. I don't care. I'm not going to kill myself to drain down to that. Then don't take the fight at 140 pounds. Like, I get he met his contractual obligations in paying $500,000 per pound that he missed. Don't sign up for that weight then. Have some respect And there was just none of it. So, and look, I've been on Ryan Garcia's side for a lot of different things because of his openness in dealing with mental health issues, and being able to come back from that. And that's really, really great. This whole weekend was kind of bullshit. And to play it off at the end as like I'm crazy like a fox, I'm not buying it. And I know a lot of people literally didn't buy it, and I think it turned a lot of people off, Ryan Garcia. It got more eye rolls than it should have. And this was already going uphill, right? Like, it was at the start of the NBA playoffs, the start of the NHL playoffs. Draft stuff is in full swing. So there was, like, look, I dedicated a full week to UFC 300 a couple weeks ago. Didn't talk about it on this show because that fight faded into the background, and that was not the way to get it back. And so now, coming out of it, like, this was a fight of two very talented young fighters. And the fight with Tank Davis, I think fraudulently, but the conversation coming out of it was, or going into it was, the winner of this is going to be the face of boxing. Well, the conversation coming out of this now is, the fuck was that? And I don't think that's a great look. So anyway, that's the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. You can follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email this show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Coming up for me this week, there's a lot of me. We are going to, here on this channel, we're going to continue with playoff coverage, obviously. We are also going to be looking at the Blue Jays with the Catalan Autocast coming up later this week. And we'll have the final blasty banter of the season for the Calgary Flames. We'll probably do some more around the draft and then free agency and blah, blah, blah. But tomorrow, it's going to be Flames grades. So we're going to be doing that one. Throughout, that one's coming out as well. Like I said, playoff reaction. Thursday, we'll be previewing the draft. Friday, I will try to react to it. It is, like I said, it is a busy week for me outside of Couch Potato here this week. I have Game Over. Subscribe to the Game Over Network. They're all going to be on there. We are breaking it up into the different teams for next season. But for now, because we're getting this thing started again, because, so I am going to be on the Game Over Network tonight, doing Game Over Edmonton, following Game 1 of the Oilers and the Kings. Tomorrow, I'll be on Game Over Vancouver, doing Game 2 of the Canucks and the Preds. And then on Wednesday, it'll be Game Over Edmonton again for Game 2 of that series. Also, I'll be on HN Live coming up this week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm doing 8 games on that network. So going to be a lot of me. And so what I'm saying is it might be tough for me to fit in the draft recap at some point in there, but at some point throughout the weekend, or maybe it'll just have to wait till Monday, I will get that for you guys. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Love chatting with you guys, and we'll talk to all of you later. I'm out.